Did you know that in 2023 and 2024, more than 150,000 jobs were lost due to layoffs? Now, that number is staggering on its own, but the part that hits closest to home for me is that a third of those jobs lost were middle managers. And that's already potentially the most thankless job in an organization. They're the ones who are cascading messages. Middle managers are the ones who are trying to motivate through other people without any direct control in one direction or the other. Now, those middle managers who lost so many of their counterparts are being asked to take on additional responsibilities, work through processes, and create new, more efficient programs on things that they aren't already familiar with through people that they haven't developed relationships with because they've lost so many of the people who were managing those roles and those responsibilities. Now, like I said, this is an area that is of particular place on my heart. And so that is why I worked with Insurance Thought Leadership to put together an article called Thriving in a Downsized World that is intended to help senior leaders understand and communicate better with those middle managers that are left in their roles. Now, the goal of that article is to kind of bridge the gap so that people are better understanding what they need to do to get the best results, to create confidence for those leaders. And if that is what you need, if you have a team of middle managers who have lost and outsourced some of their positions, then I would really encourage you to click the link below, head over to Insurance Thought Leadership, and read the full article. But what I want to do today is speak directly to those middle managers. So if you are the person who is in your role and looking to your left and to your right and seeing that some of your coworkers aren't there anymore, if you're the one who's taking on all of this added responsibility and you're not sure how you're going to keep from drowning in it, but you don't want to complain because you're someone who still has a job, if you're texting with your friends who used to be your coworkers, but now have been out from the organization, then I want to support you. I want to bring this video specifically to you. Now, again, I would still encourage you to go ahead and read that article on Insurance Thought Leadership. You can find that link below because having that understanding, having that empathy from both sides of where everyone is coming from is only going to help you communicate and build better relationships overall. But for this video, I want to help you relieve your own pressure. Because, I mean, honestly, if you walk away from this with one thing, it's that you aren't a victim. You aren't hopeless in this situation. You aren't helpless in this situation. You can take this as a true opportunity to build yourself up and become recession proof yourself by building the skills and the connections that you need, regardless of your stage and what the circumstances are around you. So, the first thing that I want to recommend that you do if you are a middle manager who is continuing on in your role as your coworkers are leaving is to bring solutions with a strategy. Now, we tell a lot of people that, right? That sounds like pretty vanilla advice. Be solution focused. That's what we say all the time. But right now is the time for you to focus on solutions with more gusto than you have in the past and make sure that they are strategic. So, what do I mean by that? Well, let's start with that strategic part. I don't want you to just become a yes man or a yes woman. Just because there is all of this work to be spread around and you're one of the few people who are left to take it on doesn't mean that you just say yes to everything that's asked of you. That's what someone who's in a victim mentality would do. They would hear that there have been layoffs. They would hear from their boss that this work needs to be picked up. And in an effort to not be a person laid off themselves, they just say yes. And they take on more than they can handle. And they end up working longer hours and giving in on more of their boundaries than they ever imagined because they want to just say yes all of the time. So you have to make sure that it has a strategy behind it that will work for you. But that being said, you do still want to come with a solution. Now, what most people will do, what most middle managers in this position will do is go to their supervisor with all of the reasons why they can't handle what's happening. They can't take on any additional work. They don't have enough staff to do the work that there is today, let alone what's left over from Susie leaving the organization. They'll come with complaints over how everything was handled. They'll come with all of these, maybe accurate, maybe truthful, but negative accounts, and they won't have a solution to support it. But that won't be you, right? Because you're here to learn what to do in this situation. So you are going to handle it differently, and you are going to have a solution that is strategic and supports you growing in the future. Now, let's give an example of what that might look like. If you are a person who's going to bring a solution that's backed by a strategy, it might sound something like this. Your boss says, look, we need our office supplies ordered every single day. Susie over here, she always did it every single day. I would send her an IM and she would go in and order everything that we needed. And that meant that every time I needed something, it was no more than 2 or 3 days before I had it in my office. Great. If you are just going to focus on solutions, you might say, okay, I'll find a way to make that work. Couldn't take that much time, right? I can work an extra 15 minutes a day. If you were going to be a typical middle manager, you might come with a, that's really nice that Susie did that for you, but there's no way I could take on any more work. I'm drowning as it is. Can't you order your own stuff? Which would be sort of that negative mentality, right? So you are going to have a strategic solution. You are going to say something like, look, John, I appreciate that you want those office supplies quickly when you need them. And that's so great that Susie was able to do that for you. I can't take the time to do that every single day with everything else that we have going on and all of the major projects that we're working on. But what I can do is commit to doing that every single Wednesday. And what that'll do for you is you will know that by the start of the following week, you will have everything you need. And you'll also know that if you get the information to me by Tuesday, you won't have to wait more than a couple days to get what you need, just like when you had Susie ordering. See how that's providing a solution, but giving a strategy that will support you to be successful in the future and them in what they actually need. So that's what I need you to do there. First and foremost is provide a route to success, provide a solution that is met with a strategy. Now, part of what I said there was revolving around the priorities, the projects, the initiatives that we need to move forward. Because no doubt in the back of your head, as I was giving that example, you thought, if only my problems were as small as office supplies, right? If only that was my biggest issue. But no, there's major initiatives that we need to see progress on. And that is where I'm going to say to you that you need to align the values that are going on in the organization. So, take a minute. This is going to be a really valuable minute, even if you aren't touching the keys or sending the emails or on the video Skype with someone. Take a minute and think through what are the values of the organization and what are the values of your specific supervisor, your manager, your senior leader, whoever you're reporting to. What do they think are the top priorities? Because as you understand what their top one or two or three priorities are, you will be better able to speak to those things directly. So if they say that, customer experience is really important to them, and maybe they don't say it outright, right? Maybe they don't say customer experience is the most important, but you can just see by listening to how they communicate, by watching what really sparks action in them, you can see that it's customer complaints that really are a hot button issue. And it's errors in the scripting for our customer service agents that are really creating a problem for them. So you know that customer experience is their number one issue. You can use that as a sounding board to make sure that you're working on the most important projects. So as they bring up these side things that they need done that, these previous employees were handling, you can say things like, look, I understand that making sure the process maps are completed and up to date is really important. However, we are extremely focused on our customer service training right now. We are making sure that our CSAs, our customer service agents, are completely up to date and exceptional. And so we're measuring that through our customer service scores and through our customer retention. And we will absolutely work on these processes once we get these metrics to where we want them to be. So, what I said there was no, we're not doing this right now, right? We're not worrying about these processes right now. But I did it based on the priorities and the values of the organization and of this leader. So they aren't going to be focused on what you're not giving them. They're going to be focused on what they find to be the most valuable and what great work you are putting into getting that done. And that's where you want them to look, isn't it? That's how you want them to see you as the person who gets the most important things done. Now, as a sidebar to that, if you head over to that article that I was referencing in the beginning over in Insurance Thought Leadership, you will see what I am giving to senior leaders as potential priorities for them in this transition. You'll see things like listen early and often and with your eyes, recognize their expertise, prioritize the workload so that we're actually giving people what we need them to focus on most, and what happens if you make mistakes so that they understand the ramifications of not handling it that way. The reason I point this out to you is if you start thinking like a senior leader, if you start thinking like an executive now, you can capitalize on this opportunity in the way that it can be capitalized on. You can make the most out of this really difficult situation so that you become the pearl. You know how pearls are formed, right? Oysters get an irritant inside of them. They get like a sand granule that gets inside of them. Now, the oyster doesn't work on trying to remove it. You don't see oysters all over the ocean just spitting out pieces of sand. What they do is go to work on turning that around. They take this bit of grit, this irritant in their system, and they mold it and they calcify it and they turn it into this gorgeous pearl that has more value than we would ever give to a piece of sand because they made the most of that opportunity. You can do the same thing when you start treating it that way. When you stop treating it like this problem that you have to complain about and vent about and give ideas on what should have been done in the past, and instead focus on where you can go from here. Now, this is something that I want to invite you to challenge yourself on, right? This isn't going to be something that changes overnight, but you can make a concerted effort to be this executive style leader who thinks and acts with the confidence of senior leadership today, no matter what level you're at. And if that sounds good to you, if that sounds like where you want to be the pearl in this situation, then I cannot recommend enough that you check out the Lead with Confidence Challenge. And I will put that link in the notes as well. All right, my friends, I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one.